So we are live.
All right. Namaste, Juanita Vorster, and welcome to the Author Experience Conversations. Happy Valentine's Day to you and to all the viewers who are watching this. And what are your plans for Valentine's Day?
Well, Valentine's Day in South Africa is pretty much over at the moment.
Oh, it's over, is it? Okay.
Yes, I spent it with family, and they are my 3 Valentines, my dear husband and my 2 children.
Wow. And 2 children, boy, girl, or boys or girls?
I have 1 girl and 1 boy, the girl being the oldest, and the boy just short of he'll 17 months later joined us.
Okay. And how old are they, you said?
Oh goodness, I always forget how old they are. My daughter is now 9, going on 10. Can you believe it? Almost mom of a teenager. And the boy is now 8.
Boy is 8.
The boy is 8.
Wow. Excellent. And what are their names?
Gabriella and Dean.
Gabriella and Dean. Very nice. So pleasure knowing more about you, Juanita. I've been following what you do in your professional life, but we would like to know today more about your personal life also, and what your journey has been. And happy Valentine's Day to all our viewers who've joined in on Facebook Live to kind of learn from your journey and learn from your insights and from your book Win, which has some
Yes.
compelling business insights for all our people who work with several Fortune 500 companies, PSUs in India, and also startups and unicorns and megacorns. So welcome once again, Juanita. As you know, we started the Author Experience Conversations in January this year. And this is like our 8th Author Experience Conversation with you. Prior to you, we've had Rusty Labuschagne, who I notice you know Rusty well, and we learned some
Rusty and I know
brilliant
each other well.
insights from Rusty. Yeah, we had some, we gained some brilliant insights from his story about resilience, about humility, about gratitude, and from his life story and all that he's gone through. So as you know, I had shared this with you over the email that at the Author Experience Conversations, we celebrate 3 genres of writers and books. The first genre, of course, is self-help, professional help, everything that comes under continuous learning and continuous improvement for a human being, for an individual, as a person, as a professional. Then we focus on books which books written by several bureaucrats, politicians, civil servants, which focus on social, economic, political concerns, and on world affairs, current affairs, human rights, etc. And then we focus on stories of real heroes, because I write stories and I'm a biographer, a historian for real heroes, very ordinary people who are doing extraordinary work. And so we focus on biographies, autobiographies, to learn from people's life stories. So those are the 3 genres of books and writers that we focus on so far. And we are very happy to have you with us, because you've been doing some excellent work with entrepreneurs and businesses in South Africa and around the world. And we would love to learn more from your entire story and your journey. So welcome once again.
Good. Thank you very much for the invitation. It's so good to be here.
Yes, you're welcome. And we keep the conversation very light. It's like a cool convo, as we call it. Light, candid, calm, and whatever insights you want to share, just feel free to flow.
Sure.
So to begin with, Juanita, tell us more about your life story, right from the beginning to where you are now. Walk us through your life story.
My life story is so tied to my business story. They really aren't very separate. And what's been interesting for me in 2020, when the whole world had to start working from home, for me and my family and the people who work with me, it was nothing new. The other day, my daughter asked me, "Mommy, I really want to see one day where it is you work." And I said, "Well, you do know where I work. You see it every day." She says, "But yes, that's your work at home. Where do you work?" She's used to other people having offices, but I've never had an office away from home as long as they were born. So obviously, when I started working, was driving through loads of traffic and tackling the highway monster every single day to get to an office. But I've been working from home since 2011 when my daughter was born. So I made that switch. So my family knows my work, and my work knows my family, and they work and merge and collaborate together because they cannot be separate. I cannot leave work at the office. And that's created an interesting dynamic in our family where the kids are very used to the business concepts that I talk about over the phone while they're in the home from a very young age. So it opens up their minds to quite a few different things.
Very nice.
But to take back to what my story was before it was this story of being an entrepreneur and an author and a business advisor, I used to be completely ordinary with an ordinary background, with an ordinary everything, nothing really extraordinary. Until one day I was given the extraordinary opportunity to run a company without having any business school or business courses to my name, without having any formal tertiary degrees to my name, and without having really understood that running a business could be a career. I was given this opportunity, seemed like a good fit at that stage of my life, so I said yes. And then I had to learn everything from scratch. Running a business is not just working as hard as you possibly can on doing the work. Running the business is a completely different skill set, and it takes different things from you as a person, and it takes different types of professional development for you to be successful as well. So I learned my lessons, and I, paid the school fees of life. And then one day I met Roger Harrop, my co-author of Win, How to Succeed in the New Game of Business. I met him at a conference, and I picked up one of his books, and I read the back cover of the book, and I said, hang on, this guy talks from stages about exactly how I've been running a business for all of these years. Surely that is how everybody else runs a business. And I went up to him and introduced myself. There's something I don't understand. Isn't this how everyone else runs businesses as well? And he said, no, people actually don't. The habit in business, to me, seems to be to make things complicated. It seems to be lodged in a traditional way of doing things that maybe used to work a different generation ago. It doesn't all of it doesn't necessarily apply to how we run businesses now, and especially post 2020. It's a new game of business with a new set of rules. And if you apply the old set of rules to the new game of business, you might be successful, but you're going to struggle, and you're not going to have as much personal fun doing business. So in short, say yes to an opportunity. That's what got me to where I am. Never make promises you can't keep. Don't lie to people, but do figure it out. There's lots of opportunities to figure business and life out.
So that was the insights and the learning that you got from Roger Harrop at the first meeting.
Yep.
And what you're basically telling us is that you're an accidental entrepreneur.
I am completely, that's the best description ever. I'm an accidental entrepreneur. I never planned to be, I never had an idea of how I wanted it to be. Completely accidental, and I'm loving every minute.
It is very interesting that you say that, because I'm an entrepreneur by nature. It's in India, in typical Hindi language, we say we have a kida. Kida is a worm. So a worm. So do you have a worm in you that you have to be an entrepreneur and do something different? Because the whole idea is that how do you kind of take the path less trodden and not settle for the run of the mill, for the ordinary? And I think that's what makes entrepreneurs special, because you struggle, you work with passion. And most people don't understand the meaning of the word passion, and they just use the word loosely. It's there in almost every Valentine's Day card, right? And I always tell people that passion is about suffering. So are you ready to suffer if you're in love with someone, right? And I'm sharing this with you before we go forward with the conversation, because during the lockdown, my co-founders and I, Itu Chopra and Nishant, who was there earlier when we just joined the call, we started something called the Mojosh Inspirator Life Leadership and Learning to Learn Success Summit. And the concept of success for us is, how are you creating value and making positive contributions as a missionary passioprania. So we actually created a term called missionary passioprania, not passionprania, but passioprania, because passio is the Latin root of the word passion, and it basically means suffering. You're ready to struggle. You're ready to go to the grind. You're ready to go through the mill, the drill, and the grill, and overcome whatever hurdles or obstacles come along, because there will be a lot of hurdles and potholes on the road less traveled,
Mhm.
right? And that's what kind of defines you as an entrepreneur. And are you learning along the way? And you would see that our tagline is, when winds of change blow, most hide behind walls, few choose to harness the wind to build windmills. And the basic intent of the mills program, as we call it, Mojo Spirit of Life,
Mhm.
Leadership and Learning to Learn Lessons, is to teach youngsters, young leaders, young graduates that, hey, don't give up, and don't be all gloom and doom because there are no jobs out there thanks to the pandemic and the lockdown, because this is probably an opportunity for you to reinvent yourself. And we are teaching them entrepreneurship, and the program is called ABCDE. Anybody can do entrepreneurship. And now, listening to you about how you picked the learning along the way after being thrust into the game of entrepreneurship, I feel we should invite you as one of our mentors in residence and a missionary passionpreneur to learn entrepreneurship from you in a separate session. But thank you for that. So tell me, how did the collaboration with Roger Harrop happen?
Um, Accidentally, pretty much. That seems to be the story of my life.
So your life is
So
life is like a series of accidents,
opportunities, I tried to
opportunities.
call them, not accidents,
Okay,
opportunities. There you go.
okay,
So the difference between an accident and opportunity is, an accident happens to you and it makes you a victim. An opportunity is something unplanned that happens to you, but you harness the wind to build the windmill.
right,
So I went up to Roger at the end of a 2.5 day conference. So there wasn't much time left. And Roger's from the UK. I'm from South Africa. He
right,
was in South Africa. So we spent lunchtime together, talking, and just realizing that without having known that the other exists before this conference, without having any intent of meeting a strategic partner at that conference, we kind of both felt that this weird connection was happening, that across these continents, across these oceans, across this divide, because there's a significant age gap between Roger and I,
right,
across the generations, we just see things the same way.
right.
And because I have found, because into my entrepreneurship journey, I was starting to find that people was asking me for advice.
Right.
And I found odd, because I'm not the most learned one. I am not the one with the technical experience. I'm not the one with the degrees. I'm not the one with, that knows the Latin root of words. And so people start asking for advice.
Okay, I
Surely there
get
was
that.
something in it. And what Roger and I felt was that all the work that he has been doing over the past, wow, then it was about 15, 20 years already, he's built models and he's built a way of codifying these new rules of business that makes business really simple. And we said, well, since he's been doing it, and since I'm passionate about giving the same value to people, I want to make success easier for people. Success doesn't need to be complicated. It really, really doesn't. So how about I collaborate with him, I bring my experience, my view, my way of doing it, my love for technology and nerdiness and so on, into his models that's been tried and tested all over the world. And how about we collaborate and take this further for years to come?
And Roger Harrop agreed to do that book with you? What was that,
Uh,
your idea, or what did he propose the book to you?
So how the book came along was, he wrote Staying in the Helicopter, his first book. He wrote that in 2006, 2008, I think. And then he wrote the first edition of Win in 2014.
Win.
So what we said to each other at the beginning of
Okay.
2020, you know, priority is to get bookings from clients as we speak on stages and do masterclasses and work with CEO teams and business teams and leadership teams to help them make success easier, increase professional
Right.
success and decrease personal stress. And then
Right.
the pandemic happened, and our focus, when all the work from all the events and all the in-person meetings disappeared overnight, we said, well, we had a lot of other things to do, priorities that we wanted to get to. Since we can't
Mhm.
go and meet people now, let's bring up, or let's move up this priority in terms of timeline, and let's revisit these books. So I took the lead then, and I said, well, Rogers has the models, it has his way of thinking, but how have I seen and experienced it over the past decade? And I mashed my stuff in there. And that's how we started writing When and How to Succeed in the New Game of Business. That was published last year in November. And that's how we're also rewriting Staying in the Helicopter at the moment. And that should hopefully be out by March. What's nice about these books is, since it's self-published, we have full control over the deadlines. We don't have to chase a deadline and step away on the quality. We don't have to conform to a certain way a book is written, the traditional way a book should be done. We can pretty much say, how do we know, what do we know in terms of what makes sense for us and what makes sense for the clients that have told us, thank you for this book. I keep it on my desk. I fly it with me. I refer back to it in meetings because it's not such a lengthy book. It becomes a reference guide for these people.
Right. I've heard you speak about success in the
Mhm.
past few minutes, where you said that you help businesses and business leaders and entrepreneurs to achieve success. How would you
Mhm.
define success?
Um,
How do you define success?
not in the traditional way. So it depends on whether you look at personal success or business success. Business success has got to be tied with some sort of numbers. You've got to tie numbers to it. When you are a commercial company, that would most probably be financial growth over time, sustained financial growth over time. If you have a more social focus, like a nonprofit or a non-governmental organization, those numbers might be non-financial in terms of the number of beneficiaries you reach over a period of time. So success has to have a number connected to it in terms of business. Personal success for me is a little bit different. I prefer to not tie personal success to finances, to numbers, to the wealth you have, and the things you can show off, but being able to answer the question to yourself, am I doing what I want to do, and that it's tied to my purpose and it's satisfied me and it makes me sleep at night? That for me is personal success. And for some people like me, we find lots of that personal success in our business success. For other they prefer to separate the two and to not measure their personal success with numbers, but with purpose.
And yet earlier I heard you say that you cannot separate the two, because who you are as a person is who you are as a professional, and vice versa.
I am, but but I've had to learn that not everybody is wired that way. I have family members, for instance, who don't have that ambitious worm that is driving them towards business success. Business work employment for them is a way to fund what they really want to do in life, which is take care of other people, volunteer for organizations that give back to the community and so on. So for me, to think of them as less successful because their picture of success is different than mine is unfair from my side. Everybody has to have the right to define their own picture of success. Um, but to just say I'm just here and I'm not moving anywhere, and to not make the effort to define that success, that for me might be the key to not ever achieving success. Because success is whatever you define it to be, but you've got to start with defining it, not just saying I don't know what it looks like.
I hear you. Yes, I hear you. And the reason I'm going deeper into this is because, like I
Mm,
told you, like I told you earlier, what we are trying to teach the younger generation is that success, like you said, is doing what you love, walking that path less trodden, and discovering yourself along the way, rather than kind of settling for ordinary. Or because you have extraordinary potential in you. And if it's what Confucius said, that do what you love and you're not working a single day in your life. And I think you discovered that after becoming an entrepreneur and now a writer, and you are unleashing your potential along the way. But unfortunately, a lot of people, personally or professionally, define success by the wealth that they create or the money that they have, and like you said, the materialistic things that they accumulate, so that they can show off to the Joneses, keeping up with the Joneses, as it is called in the United States of America, which is your most
Yes.
capitalistic country in the world, right? And the concepts have been sold wrong, because for us, and this is what research shows you, that success is about the impact you create, the
Mm.
legacy you leave, right? Which is, the legacy you leave is about the value that you create in people's life, the positive contributions that you make, not just for the self, but also for society, for the
Correct.
country, and for the world at large. Now, when you were talking about success, you spoke about success in terms of not for profit and profit. And of course, the
Mhm.
not for profit people are focused on impact, and I'll come to that
Mhm.
later. But the for profit people are only focused on profitability. And profitability is important, but
Yes.
you've forgotten the other two P's, which is planet
And
and
people.
people.
Oh yeah.
The triple bottom line approach, as it is called. So whether you have business leaders in Fortune 500 companies, Fortune 100 companies, and other businesses, including small and medium enterprises, or entrepreneurs who are young and should have been starting up in the right way, they're only
Mhm.
focused on profitability and valuation. They don't focus on value.
And that worked well up until now. It worked well up until about 10 years ago. And then it kind of worked sort of ish up until 2020. And then the pandemic exposed a lot of brands who were focused on profitability and just greenwashing and people washing and so on. They exposed them and people could see them for what they are.
Yes.
And there's a massive increase this year in the number of articles on LinkedIn that I just see in Twitter in terms of ESG investing, environment, social, and governance investing, where
Mm,
people are saying, well, we don't just want to invest in the most financially successful companies anymore. We
right.
want to invest in those that understand that for them to continue to be successful, they've got to take responsibility for all three P's. And I
Absolutely.
really love what you're saying, because in Win, the fourth fundamental of winning in the new game of business is having everyone in the company focused, laser focused on the bottom line of the company, but not just the bottom line in terms of finances, the triple bottom line, exactly as you said. And everybody needs to understand what their own impact is on the finances of a company, because to push it the other way to saying all companies should only be taking care of the environment and only be taking care of the people and the money will follow, that isn't true either. It's a balancing act between all three and understanding how you can use finances, how you can use profit without causing harm and to the benefit of the self, the company, and the other, and the greater good. So it's once again the traditional, the old rules of business. It used to work. That was the focus. It's changed though. And business leaders need to understand, even entrepreneurs, even in a startup, you need to understand that you need to define the purpose of your business in terms of three purposes. What's the financial goals of my organization? What is the social impact I want to make? And obviously, if you're for profit, the financial goals is going to be preeminent. If you're a non-governmental or non-profit organization, it might be social. But financial, social, and brand. What do my company, want to mean in the lives of our clients? We've got to think about all three. Just flaunting your wealth and not being able to answer at what cost it came, cost for the planet and the people, it's not enough anymore. And if it is in your industry, it's going to change the next 10 years at least.
I'm happy that you're echoing my sentiments and resonating my thoughts, which I share in my talks and in my workshops. I do leadership workshops around the world, and I teach entrepreneurs that the profit, if the triple bottom line is a triangle, the
Mhm.
triangle has to be inverted. profit cannot be on top. Profit has to be below, right? Because people and planet are on top. If you focus on people and planet, the profit is automatic.
I don't know if I completely agree with that. Completely. I do agree that you need to pay as much attention on all three. So it can't just be profit and people and planet as an afterthought. But what I found, through this being an accidental entrepreneur, the money doesn't just take care of itself. To do good is great, but you've got to have the financial savvy and the skills and understand how business works. You've got to understand how to sell, and you've got to understand how people buy from you and how much money you need to answer your purpose in terms of planet and people. But I won't quite do it as, go as far as saying if you take care of the people and the planet, the money will follow. Not yet.
So I have an entire process to explain that, but it'll take a full day for that. But just to give you a nutshell about how
Sure.
that works, when you focus on people, people are also your employees. And most
Mm-hmm.
entrepreneurs and most business leaders, they only focus on profits. I call it the squeezing lemon syndrome. You squeeze
Mm-hmm.
the people to juice out the profits. And in that process, the people's productivity is not very high. The
Correct.
people's productivity could have been 10x if you had invested in people.
Mm-hmm.
Because when people feel engaged, they deliver more and they create more impact for people who are buying your products or services. And when
Yeah.
that trust is there internally with the internal customers who are your employees, that trust manifests in the external customers who are your buyers or customers or clients. And that's how you make much more profit, right? And it is in the planet that we live in, because with all due respect to Elon Musk, who wants to go to Mars, I'm like, why do you want to go to Mars and harm another planet now? Because we
He's
pretty
got a
much
worm.
broken the planet, right? We broken planet Earth. Like you said, till 10 years ago, it was okay to do business the way you were doing business, get profit by any means with all the jiggery pogery. And yes, you did well for yourself in terms of the profit bottom line, but the planet is pretty broken. I remember 1992, a young girl called Severin Suzuki traveled from Vancouver to Rio de Janeiro in Brazil and spoke at the UN World Assembly and addressed 175 leaders from 175 countries. And she said,
Mhm.
"You pretty much broken the world. The world does not belong to you. It belongs to us, the younger generation. So if you don't know how to fix it, don't break it anymore." 29 years later, almost 3 decades later, the world is more broken. And we have the pandemic and the lockdown, and people have yet to wake up, right? Because if you see the entire trend around the world during the lockdown, everybody was counting how the billionaires were squeezing more profits by squeezing out the lemons. And the billionaires, their wealth has grown.
Mm.
So the world is pretty much an oligarchy. It's not just Russia, which is an oligarchy anymore. India is an oligarchy. United States is an oligarchy. UK is an oligarchy. And people still think that they're living in a democracy. But I can go on this subject. So there is a process to this, where, because besides teaching entrepreneurship and business, I also coach people and mentor people about
Mhm.
how to engage teams, how to engage team members. Because what research shows you, whether it's the Gallup organization study or study done by Mercer and several other organizations, that there are trillions of dollars lost because employees are not engaged
Mm.
in most of your organizations. Gallup study shows you that 85% of people who come to jobs worldwide hate their jobs. So when they hate their jobs, can their energy and engagement and productivity be high? It's a question mark. And I'll leave you with that thought. I'm just provoking a thought process. and
No,
and
it's
and I
interesting
like
that
what
you
you
say
said, that
that.
success is about the holistic.
It's interesting that you say that
Go
because
ahead.
fundamental two in winning in the new game of business, there are four fundamentals. Fundamental two is literally be a great place to work. Fundamental two of four things. So one of the four fundamentals of winning in the new game of business is being a great place to work. And being a great place to work is reliant on a few things like team performance and leadership and culture and so on, but also giving employees what they want. And what employees want isn't just a paycheck anymore. There are 10 things that employees want that we go in depth into in the book. and only one of them is reward me fairly. The rest is all about management and meaning and role clarity and communication and discipline and all of these things that didn't exist when the first industrial revolution started. So think about all of this. I'm hearing what you're saying in terms of politics and how people see it, and billionaires, and this complete imbalance in the world. And how great would it be if we could just go like this and it would change? But that's not how change happens. Change happens in stops and starts. And in some cases, it happens faster, in others, it happens slower. And we're going to see a change over time, but it's going to be slow because we have 5 generations in the workplace at the moment. And each generation see different things differently. And each person in those generations see differently. So there's no way we can expect everybody to just get it and change. There's got to be this balance between honoring the past and protecting the present and building the future that people are figuring out for themselves. But I do agree that to a large extent, or at least a quarter of it, starts with how you treat people in the workplace. And I've had a number of experiences this year. Actually, you think that this year is very long. In the 6 weeks old that this year is, I've had a number of experiences where I've just realized that it starts with the values of the business leaders.
Very
Not
nice.
what they say on the website, not what they say on the wall, but what they live every single day. And as emotionally tired as people are now, that is what's being exposed at the moment. People say, oh, I always treat my workforce and other people in such a manner. And now you're seeing whether it's true or not, because the people who really live the values they talk about are the ones that are being resilient for their teams, are the ones that is there for their teams and that hasn't decreased their expectations, because frankly, business needs to continue. High performance is still an expectation, quality is still an expectation. We can't just go, oh, everybody's tired, let's just let it go. But within that, not dropping your expectations. The great business leaders at the moment are increasing their empathy, are increasing their understanding of what their employees are going through on a day-to-day basis to get their job done. And they're taking responsibility not for reducing the responsibility of each employee or for just giving out free passes and get out of jail free cards, but saying, as a business leader and as an employer, it's my responsibility to have the empathy to see where we can change things now. And those values are coming through, and it's responding to what employees want. And employees are saying, well, it's tough out there at the moment, and I don't necessarily, I can't afford to go anywhere, but I might be willing to take more risks now because things in the workplace are getting bad. People aren't putting money and salary as high as they are. What value am I creating? How am I being treated? How is life, or how is work part of my life, not separate from my life?
I like that. I like what you're speaking about, because we focus a lot on values, and I'm just going to pull up a slide again,
Mm.
and way back, starting from how humanity evolved as hunters and gatherers, and then moving to the agrarian age, and then moving to the industrial age, and currently we are in the knowledge age, and we are now slowly but surely moving into the wisdom age. And this is what we've outlined in our book, which is titled Mojo Inspirator. It's a series of books with personal and professional self-help, that if employers, if entrepreneurs are not focusing on engaging people in mind, body, heart, spirit, and soul, you will never get an engaged workforce. Now, this would have worked in the industrial age, but unfortunately, people did not have choices. But moving from the industrial age to the knowledge age, people have choices. They're not just looking
Yeah,
at a paycheck anymore, because that's the body,
yeah.
that's the physical intelligence, survival. So you're coming to work because it pays the bills, and that's why
Mhm.
85% of the people hate their jobs. But they're not mentally engaged, because I want to learn from people I'm working with. If I'm not
Yeah,
learning, if my learning curve is not there, I'm not feeling good, right? Because I'm just coming to work to pay the bills. Then the emotional
exactly.
intelligence, I want to feel loved. I don't want to feel like a part of the furniture or a lemon who's being squeezed by my
Yes,
manager, right?
yes.
And then you have the spiritual intelligence, which means I want to leave a legacy. And that's why I always say in my entrepreneur talks, don't just create enterprise or empires, create eternity, which goes beyond you and many generations, right? And finally, the missing link, which many leadership coaches or authors have not covered, moral intelligence. I want to do what is right. I don't
Yeah.
want to do things which are wrong. I don't want to fudge figures. I don't want to. I don't want to do any jiggery pogery or fakery. And unfortunately, most great places to work are there in the great places to work rating, but the cultures are toxic. So if you actually see great places to work and compare it with Glassdoor, they're absolutely contradicting each other. What the
Yeah.
employees are saying in great places to work and Glassdoor. And what research has shown us is, if you study Peter Drucker or Peter Senge, who wrote The
Mhm.
Fifth Discipline, research shows you that many organizations do not have a culture of learning, and that a
True.
culture of learning, because when a manager teaches his team members to learn, you're also creating an emotional and spiritual bonding. And then the messaging is right, that don't get things done, get the things done in the right way. So in many
Yes.
organizations, just to get those quarterly results and annual profits, people are actually making the roots of the business weak. And it's a
Mm.
matter of time before the business also collapses. We can see this around the world. you know $70 billion businesses, $100 billion businesses are crashing.
Yeah.
And I think it's a wake up call for business leaders and entrepreneurs, that you need to, like you rightly said, balance. I'm not saying profits are not important. Profits are important, but hey, pay
Balance.
equal attention to people and planet as you pay to profit. Yeah. And that what I'm saying is that that would increase and enhance
Mm.
the productivity, and that in turn would impact the profitability of an organization to and make it 10x. On the other side, you spoke about the not-for-profit sector, and I've been a serial profit entrepreneur and then a serial non-profit entrepreneur. And I decided to become a leadership coach and a mentor because I refused to work with any NGO, because many NGOs, non-government organizations,
Mhm.
are more corrupt than businesses and governments, right? And especially in India, because we have like almost around 3 million NGOs in this country. Africa, which
Mhm.
has so many NGOs who have not been able to show any impact. So again, when you just kind of fudge the number of beneficiaries that you have impacted without really empowering them to become independent, then you're just kind of impacting your fundraising model. You're not really impacting the community. I have stories in my book of very, very small, ordinary people in the rural hinterlands of India
Mhm.
who have, without any funding, created impact. There is a
Yeah.
farmer called Lakshman Singh who has transformed over 500 villages from wastelands into wetlands. I have yet to see any international NGO speak about that. Africa, where you have so many international NGOs working, you know, people like William Kamkwamba, who's our mascot mentor for the Mills program that I showed you. When winds of
Mhm.
change blow, you face and harness the wind and build windmills, right? Show me the kind of impact which international NGOs have made in Africa, which William Kamkwamba, a 16-year-old kid, did, right? So I think we need to look at this with more detail and more attention, and I'm provoking this for all the people who are watching us, because please balance the profits, please balance the impact with the people and the planet, because at the end of the day, profits have to be made in the same planet, and in a broken planet you won't be able to make profits. So Juanita, tell me more about the book called Win. What are the basic principles that you cover in the book?
The most basic principle is keep it simple. Just keep business simple. It's easy to get caught up in the day-to-day of running a business, but you've got to know where you are going. And you've got to be able
Right.
to translate this fire in your belly, this worm inside of you that you talked about in the beginning. You've got to translate that into a structured, actionable plan. So in the book, Win, How to Succeed in the New Game of Business, we've broken it down into 4 fundamentals. And the first fundamental is win by being exceptional and using technology and great people to get there, and listening to younger generations. The second one is being a great place to work for those younger generations, for those great people, and creating a space where they can be the best they can be. Fundamental 3 is it's dangerous to rely only on existing customers. So you can't be so focused on doing the now work that you stop chasing the next work. You always have to have a pipeline full of people that want to do business with you. And the fourth one is, within all of that, don't keep your eyes off the triple bottom line. Make sure the money comes in, the money that you need to fulfill your purpose. Make sure you don't do it at the expense of people or the planet, and over again. And what I found with these four fundamentals, because it's not as complicated as we would do strategy on a board level meeting, and I've created lots of strategies and facilitated lots of board strategies in my career. What I like about the four fundamentals of win is, in my own company, when I run it and I feel myself getting overwhelmed or stuck, or I don't know where to go now, I don't know how to make this decision, I could go say, stop. Which of these four fundamentals do I need to activate now to make a difference? And when I do take a step back and say, how can we be better for ourselves, for our clients, for our business? I always go at, which of these four do we need to activate now? So it's a really good base to go back to in terms of thinking, where's your starting point, and then working through the elements of each of those fundamentals.
Right. And you spoke about how to create strategies, what we call as visioning, as leadership and entrepreneur mentors. How do you create a vision? And what I have noticed over years is, some CEO with a fancy degree from a Ivy League institute or an expensive business school that they attended sits in their glass house in some urban city, right? And creates a strategy for farmers who are working in rural villages, right? I call it the disconnect between the glass house and the grassroots. And I always say that great leaders and real leaders don't create strategies or visions on their own. They always consult people who are working with them. They're not just the core team, the few cronies.
Write down.
Yeah, write down, because if you are not listening to the person at the last mile who's actually delivering the results and understanding her or his pain points, and that's why I use the analogy of the farmers, because the farmers are working in the farm. They are dirting their hands in the soil. They know exactly what their pain points are, what is the lack of resources, and what are the resources that they need. So if you're not listening to them, you are creating a vision and a strategy which is far from what is happening as ground reality. So great leaders actually co-create vision and strategies. They don't just create it by their own thinking. What are your thoughts on this?
I agree. I've got this saying of, think like a doer when you create strategy. And it's all about knowing enough, not knowing how to do the details of all the jobs, but knowing enough of what goes into those jobs so that you don't set unrealistic goals and unrealistic expectations. Look, to create a vision that impresses the board is easy. To create a strategy for a company that looks impressive is really easy. To execute that strategy, yeah, that's where the problem is. And a strategy itself is useless. Executing that strategy in the time, in the budget, and in the way that it was supposed to, so that you can measure the results and the impact, that's where the crux lies. And often the stumbling block is, look, everybody, be excited. This is our vision. This is our strategy. You need to sign up, squeeze your own lemons harder so we can make this happen. Whereas if you took a step back and talked to the people that implement the strategy and listened, sometimes it's not about changing the whole strategy. And I think that's what many business leaders, and I found it myself as well, we're scared that we won't be allowed to dream big enough, or we'll be so embroiled in problems that we won't be able to take it to the board and tell the board, well, this is actually realistic. We're being pushed for vision. We're being pushed to be extraordinary. But within that, we need to take the responsibility as business leaders to balance the extraordinary vision with taking care of the people and making sure that it's implementable. So sometimes it's not about changing the big plan, but just adjusting timelines, or a different allocation of resources, or a different way of measurement. Or sometimes it's just communicating differently. Because to have a strategy and to tell people about the strategy does not mean you've communicated. Proper communication is me saying something to you and then asking you for feedback to test whether our understanding of this whole strategy aligns. And only once our understanding aligns can we start moving forward, because otherwise what's going to happen is from the top is going to have to micromanage the strategy, and from the bottom is just going to try and complete tasks, being frustrated because they don't know how this fits in. They see different, easier, better ways to get to the exact same point. So they're going to take shortcuts if they don't understand where this is coming from. And it ties into your moral intelligence as well. And funny that we should have this discussion today, because the chapter I'm writing on our second book from Maria Roger, Staying in the Helicopter, the Key to Sustained Profitable Growth, is about values and ethics. I don't know if you know this, but I'm a certified ethics officer as well. So I actually did go and earn my designation on how to embed ethics into an organization where people from different backgrounds, different cultures, different values get together, but they need to follow one ethical standard to the benefit of the greater good. So strategy, you've got to create it, not in isolation, by listening to people on the ground. If it differs to what you heard from the people of the ground, you've got to communicate properly and explain to them in a way that they would understand, and they communicate back to you that they've understood it, why it's different to what they said. We've got to connect throughout the business.
I'm so happy that you brought this up and shared this insight, because what research shows you that in most organizations around the world, whether they are large Fortune 500 and Fortune 100 companies or MSMEs, only 12% of the workforce knows what the vision, mission, and values of the organization are. Only 12%,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
From the vision comes your strategic goals, right? Because
Yep.
the mission is, the vision is where do we want to go? The mission
Yep.
is how do we get there, right?
Yep.
So if you have a 10-year vision, you need to kind of break it down into what we call as dogs, dearly obsessive goals, which are yearly goals, annual goals. And most organizations, because you have these CEOs from expensive B schools who think they know it all, they have those, fancy sounding vision statements which are a plaque on the wall, but the workforce does not know them. So if the workforce does not know them, how will the execution happen, right? And like you said, you need to communicate it and regularly do a reality check whether people know exactly what is
Mhm.
expected of them, because most people are just working with the job description without knowing what
Yep.
is the specific
Yep.
job to be done, right?
Yep.
And that's what we highlight in visioning exercises with CEOs, where we actually tell them, if people from the last mile are not in this room, I don't want to work with you, because you're just
Yep.
going to get it all wrong, and I don't want to get it all wrong, because it's my credibility at stake over here, right? Because without having the farmers in the room, I can't create the strategy for them.
Mhm.
And then when we do the vision and we create the dearly obsessive goals, which are called strategic annual goals, and then we break it down into elephants and ants. What are the big things
Mhm.
that need to be done? What are the small things which, if ignored, will derail this entire
Yep.
vision, right? And that's why I call it elephants and ants, big things. So we've
Yep.
actually used the names of animals to kind of address all this. And then I
That's
apply the
brilliant.
I apply the 7P factor, which is prior,
Mhm.
proper, planning, and preparation prevents poor performance. Now, prior proper planning everybody does, but nobody
Mhm.
prepares for things that will go wrong. And the moment I say, okay, now that we've got the dogs in place, we've got the vision in place, we've got the execution plan in place, now let's discuss what are those things that will go wrong along the way. And then people are like,
Mhm.
why are we talking negative, Cherry? I mean, we've cracked
You've
something
got
great over
to.
here, so what are you talking negative? And I'm like, this don't talk negative, be positive is the most negative business in the world. Because if you're not prepared for things that will go wrong, then you will break down when things go wrong. Because whether you like it or not, Murphy's Law is at work. And to any journey which is worth taking and any vision which is worth achieving, there will be pitfalls, there will be hurdles, there will be
Mhm.
obstacles, there will be hardships along the way. So the question to ask your team members is, if this happens, what will we do? Not that
Yes.
you will come up with the ideas, let them come up with the ideas. So when it happens, everyone is prepared. And I
Mhm.
think I think that's what is the missing link in most boardrooms when they sit down and just prepare fancy visions because they think they know it all. And the Mojo Inspirator book, our first virtue that we highlight in the book is enlightenment. And what we say about enlightenment is not thinking that you know everything.
Mm,
Enlightenment, understanding that you don't know everything and you know nothing, and keeping an open mind to learning from other people all the time.
yeah.
And this has
There's
become
one.
and this has become one of the you spoke about empathy. Research has thrown up that there are few skills which they don't teach you in school and college and fancy B schools. The first concept is called learning to learn, and I'm happy to inform you that unwittingly, unknowingly, we at the REX Karmaveer Global Fellowship Mission created this concept around 15, 16 years ago when I got full time into the learning space. And my website is called jerrylearnstolearn.com. And my email ID for my learning work was jerrylearnstolearn121@gmail.com. And now research has shown that this is the most essential skill of the future, which means you may be
Mhm.
the CEO, you may be the chairman, you may be the founder. Are you keeping an open mind to learning from all your team members? Because your team members may know more about what to do than you, right? Because
Yeah.
they are they are at the forefront delivering results. Now, this is connected to what Peter Drucker said 35 years ago, where he said, invert the hierarchy. You're not on the top as the CEO, you're below. On top are the front runners who are delivering the results.
Yeah.
Yes, you take the big fat paycheck home, but they are the ones who are delivering the results. So treat them with respect. You're a support system for them,
Mhm.
right? And that's exactly, I think, what you are talking about. I just wanted to articulate those thoughts, because if those people who are delivering the results and are at the forefront are not taken care of, then your results will always be mediocre. They will never be great,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
it takes great leaders to build great teams that are highly engaged, highly energized, and highly productive, and that in turn impacts great results. The fact that you spoke about execution, I'm so happy to have you on this, because a lot of coaches, a lot of consultants focus on the visioning part, and they rarely talk about execution and the action
But that
plan.
is
But
your part.
that's where it all goes wrong.
Yeah, the execution part is where it goes wrong, and that's why people have told me, why don't you get out of business? You can do so much more if you focus on the business advisory and the writing and the. My thing is, if I step away from it, I lose my platform to learn how to learn. I
Right.
will lose touch with how fast things are moving in business. And my secret sauce, if I can call it that, is because I live it every single day. I make those execution mistakes myself every day.
You're hands
So
on.
when I do set a strategy, it's literally my mistakes that you are learning from. And if I see you going to make the same mistakes, I will be the first one to say, hang on, I've made this mistake. This is what the outcome was. Let's choose a different way for you. And I want to highlight or come back to something that you said, that there's this huge focus on visioning and thinking positive and don't be the negative person. But there's one thing I've learned from working with the Institute of Risk Management in South Africa, where their chief risk officer said, risk isn't about the negative Nellies. It's not looking just at what can go wrong and what you should do to prevent it and mitigate it, etc., etc. So most boards that I've dealt with have a risk register, but the risk register seems to be kind of a tick box exercise. We've done the risk register, we know what we're doing, and then let's go and file it. Instead of using the risk register as a living, breathing document, that's not just about what can go wrong, but what will we do when things
Absolutely.
go in a certain way. Risk is
Absolutely.
not just about what can go wrong. Risk is about what happens when a massive opportunity arises. What do we have and who do we have thinking about this that can capitalize on this opportunity that might appear to be a risk for others, but that gets us one step ahead? You've got to balance the risk and the opportunity thinking. And I love what you're saying. Don't create all the answers yourself. You're not always going to be there. Loosen, especially if you're a founder owner, make very sure that the business is not dependent on you being there. Succession planning doesn't start when you want to get out. Succession planning doesn't start when you get old. Succession planning starts from day one when you hire your first person. How do I train this person to be my replacement? And it's risky. Look, I think the biggest thing we as business leaders have to learn is how to let go of that ego. That
Right.
ego that wants to show the wealth, that ego that wants to be respected by peers because I drive a certain car, the ego that people look up to me because I always know what to do. And if we can get rid of that ego and say, no, hang on, I've got a role in this business. My role is not to know everything. My
Right.
role is not to lead everything. My role is to connect the resources, everything the business has, in such a way that they are able to create this big thing that ends up being the vision and the strategy. And it's not led by you as a person, your own ego, but by the collective of the business.
Bang on. I mean, it's like, it's like, you and I have shared notes before, because
And we haven't, we haven't. When you listen, we haven't. We really, really haven't.
and everything you're saying is music to my ears. The other thing I've noticed, Juanita, is that in a lot of organizations, they get the visioning piece right. They also get the
Mm-hmm,
execution piece right, but
mm-hmm.
they don't have a culture of trust. They don't
Yeah.
have a culture of failure, and they don't have a culture of learning. And now, going back to what I said, that when you focus on people and planet, your profits increase
Mm-hmm.
manifold. If there is no trust, if I don't trust you, no matter how great a vision you have created, would I accept it?
Ah,
No.
over.
It's Donald Trump at work, right? You may be the president of the United States of America. I don't trust or respect you because your title and your position and your designation does not get you trust and respect. You have to earn that. Yes or no? And I can only earn that by treating my people right and doing what is right. Because if I'm doing any fakery, I've lost my credibility, because trust
Yeah.
is all about credibility. The second thing which I've seen is that everyone is busy playing the game. They've forgotten to change the game. And when they actually finally get into a consultant like me or you, and they call us to kind of say, okay, we need to change the game. Can you create a visioning strategy? And you're like, okay, but to change the game, are you prepared for failure? Because how do you expect people to innovate and experiment and change the game when you won't allow them to fail?
Mm,
Now, these are the
mm.
classic mistakes which entrepreneurs and business managers in most organizations make. What are your thoughts on this?
Failure sucks so much, but in failure, it's the same as with risk and opportunity. In failure lies growth.
Absolutely.
Growth is not about doing the same thing, over and over and over again. That's quality control. That isn't growth, and that definitely isn't exponential growth. We've got to create in our companies appetite for failure. Now, it also depends on which industry you're in. If you're highly regulated and people could lose their lives and it's a health and safety issue, you don't really want a high appetite for failure, because there you have to test within controlled limits. But if we're in services businesses, or where our products and services don't have a life or death impact, we've got to allow ourselves, and it's as hard as giving up ego, we've got to allow ourselves to try and be wrong, and to allow others to tell us where we've gone wrong as leaders. We've also got to allow our teams to, within this strategy, within this vision that we've communicated, so we now all understand what this is, set them free and say, I haven't thought about how you are going to get that done because I trust you. So how about I give you the freedom to go make mistakes, and when you do, I've got your back. It's a rule that I have with my team as well, where they will go, I did this and this and this and this. This worked, but I actually made a mistake here. And I will go, right, let's not focus on the mistake. Let's focus on how you can prevent it next time. Great. This is how you're going to do it. Do you need me to step in and wipe up some of the mess? And often these people say, no, I created the mess. I will mop it up. Or they will go, I don't know how to. Can you please help me? But my team knows that I've got their backs. If they're wrong, I will be the first one to tell them. They know that as well. I'm a hard boss. But when they failed with good intentions, without the intent to do harm, I've got their backs. And that culture of failure has got to come from the top. And it's not just, oh, we've got a culture of failure. You can't say we allow for zero defect and we've got a culture of failure. it's that whole values and ethics things. It's not about what you say. It's not about what's on the wall and the website. It's what you live every day. And it's how people right on the ground experience your reaction, their manager's reaction, because we're now talking about the top and the bottom. But very often the middle tends to be the problem, because the middle hasn't been given the opportunity to go through all of these professional development exercises and visions and so on. So the CEOs know what the new game is. Those at the bottom know what the game really is. And those in the middle aren't privy to either or. They're stuck in the middle. So as leaders, we've got to make sure that throughout, not just to the bottom, throughout the organization, everybody's reaction to failure aligns with the others, where
Right.
immediate failure is an immediate firing or immediate discipline. But there's a way we deal with failure, saying, what were the risks? What were the opportunities? What did we learn? Where do we say sorry? Where do we take responsibility? Go make good and go from here. But it's hard. Giving up ego and allowing yourself to make mistakes, it's the hardest thing any business leader can do.
I'm very happy that you have shared all that you shared in the past few minutes, because that's exactly what I believe in. And I just I drew this right now, and you would see like a infinite, the
Mm-hmm.
sign of infinity, and in one
Yeah.
circle, the sign of infinity is that you need to have a culture of learning to learn.
Yeah.
On the other side of in the sign of infinity is the culture of failure, because
Mm-hmm.
all failure contributes to learning to learn, and you allow
Yes.
that with honest mistakes, with, like you said, genuine, sincere mistakes. Yeah, because if you want people to innovate, if you want people to experiment, they can't do that without failing, right? And that infinitum is then have a circle with two arrow marks on either side, in which there's culture of trust, because the culture
Mm-hmm.
of trust sustains that. I know you won't make a mistake for the sake of making a mistake. I know you will
Yes.
make a mistake because you really put your heart and soul and spirit into doing something which was game changing for the organization, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because that game change need not come from me as a founder or a CEO or a chairman, right?
It
I mean,
should come from the rest of the organization.
absolutely. And that's how I articulated this. I'm going to use this diagram in one of my next books, and thank you for that. I got this insight to draw this as you were speaking, so thank you
Good.
so much for that. And tell us, Juanita, a little more about your new book, the helicopter book. What's
The
the full what's the,
helicopter.
what's the full title again, for the benefit of our readers and viewers?
Staying in the helicopter
Yes,
is
staying
the
in the
key.
helicopter. I,
Is
I
the
don't I don't know
key.
anybody who would want to be out of the helicopter when it's flying, but okay.
So staying in the helicopter is the key to sustained profitable growth. Profitable growth is easy. You grow and then you sell and then you get out. Sustained profitable growth is what business is after when we look at this financial purpose that you should be defining to reach your impact and so on. So how to succeed in the new game of business is very much about how to use technology and people in the workplace, and it's operational and so on. We're staying in the helicopter, for me, same target audience, anyone running or involved in running a business of any size in any sector. Staying in the helicopter has the value for me in it guides your thinking. So where when guides a lot of my doing, staying in the helicopter guides my thinking. And it starts at 30,000 feet in the helicopter, saying business leaders get so wrapped up in the day-to-day that they don't find time to step away and view it from the big picture. And when they do find time, they don't know where to start. So
Very
we're
nice.
saying 20% of your time, one day a week, should be spent in the helicopter. And the helicopter isn't just sitting back and thinking about things. There's a very structured way in how you do it. And it starts with purpose. Then it goes to values and ethics. And so as the helicopter goes lower in the hovering levels, it goes from thinking big picture across all of the elements in the business that you need for sustained profitable growth without getting wrapped up in the nitty-gritty of each of those. So once you've spent your time in the helicopter and gone through all of those levels, you have such a good grasp of what is happening and what should be happening in your organization. Go back, implement 20% of your time, take it away, check, are we doing the right thing across all of these areas, And so the story goes. And staying in a helicopter and win works really well with each other because it takes care of the thinking and the doing bit.
I'm so happy you brought this up because in my talks, I simply explain it with one line. I say in
Yeah,
most organizations, most people are very busy doing a lot, delivering not, right?
there you go.
That's the truth of many organizations. They're so busy playing the game, like they're just busy saving the world all the day. They've forgotten to step back into the balcony and figure out what's going wrong in the football field. I use the simple metaphor of a coach because the coach can see the entire playground. The player who's playing with the ball focused on the goalpost cannot see the entire playground. So you need to step back, and that's exactly what you're speaking about. I'm so
Yep.
happy that you brought this out because if you're just busy, and busyness is not business.
Busyness is not business. I say this every single day. Don't just get stuff done.
Right.
Being busy isn't being in business. They're two
Absolutely.
completely different things.
Absolutely. And I try to explain this to entrepreneurs and business leaders, CEOs, owners, and they're like, Jerry, show me one person who's not achieved big things by not working like 18 hours a day. I'm like, you'll burn out, you'll die. You're
Yeah.
just a mere mortal. You're a human being and you can die tomorrow,
Unfortunately.
right? I've shown them great research to show that many progressive countries and companies are moving to 4-day weeks, 6-hour days, and productivity is increasing. Microsoft, for example, in 2018 or 19 moved to a 4-day week and their productivity went up by 38%. So I think
Yeah.
it's time for people to understand that business is not business. Long hours does not mean that you're more productive. In fact, you're counterproductive because your emotional, mental, spiritual health is very low. And then your physical health is also very low. So how can you be highly
Yep.
productive? It's a simple
Yep.
science, and yet people don't understand this. Thank you for highlighting that, and thank you for seconding my thoughts. Finally, Juanita, before we wind up, I want to know, besides business, I mean, you spoke about your children, Gabriella and uh,
Being.
Dean. So what does your spouse do, and how does he support you in your business?
My spouse supports me by being the complete opposite of me.
Okay.
If you look at all of the, the personality tests where they say, you are this personality type, don't ever work with someone of this personality type or get married to them. Well,
Right.
one of my longest standing employees is that personality type, which is exactly opposite to me, as same as my husband. So because I have such extreme thoughts and ways of working in one area, and he is incredibly stable and secure, that balances each other out. I am the drive and he is the brake. And that won't necessarily work where there's two people in the middle where both have elements of both. It's really hard to explain this. But in his extreme chillness and in my extreme drivenness, there's a balance that works where we can both learn from each other. And what I love most about him, look, he didn't give me a Valentine's gift. He asked me last night, so what are we doing for Valentine's? So he's not the romantic type, but what he is he's the stable type. He gives me the respect and the freedom to do what I need to do. He never questions when I go on a work trip. He never questions when it's 4 o'clock on a Sunday afternoon and I say, got a recording with Jerry. He never says, yes, but why? Who's going to cook? He just goes, okay. So there's an interest in my business without becoming overly involved, and there's care without becoming overly emotional, and there's support and freedom. And that is why I love him so dearly, and that is why we are so happily married, because there's balance in the extremes.
And that's very that's very nice to know because I hope all the men from India, especially who are watching, who mostly don't like their spouses, their wives to work, are listening to you. And I'm what is his name?
His name is Adrian.
Sorry.
Adrian.
Adrian. I hope
Yes.
that they learn from Adrian's example, where he gives you the complete freedom to operate and balances your entire drivenness with his stillness and calmness, like you said. And what does he do? Is he employed or is he also an entrepreneur?
He is not an entrepreneur. He would hate to be an entrepreneur. He doesn't want to be a manager. He doesn't have any leadership ambitions whatsoever. He likes going to work and doing what he needs to do every single day. And as much as I love change, he hates change. So he is in the fiber optics installation field on
Okay.
the network planning side.
Okay. Excellent. Great. Brilliant. My regards to him and Gabriela and Dean. And great. And tell me, to finally conclude this with one last question, what are the plans going forward after stay in the helicopter? Are you planning more books? Are you planning to scale up your business? What are the plans going forward?
I don't really know. You catch me off guard. I'm kind of focused at the moment in this book. There's one more book that I do want to write, but I've got to check first if I'm not going to put everything staying in the helicopter. Whatever the plan is, whatever it looks like in the end, whether it's scaling the business, while scaling my one company that I'm running now, or scaling the advisory business. I don't know what it's going to look like, but I know what it's going to do, what the impact is going to have. And that's my personal purpose of helping others
Mm-hmm.
and teaching myself to do better business better. And that second better bit is for people, planet, and profit, with personal ease, with personal fun, and doing it in a way that doesn't need 18 hours a day, because I've worked that. I sometimes still work that, but now I balance them with a day of 4 hours of focus. Or, if I'm stuck on the problem, going for a drive, going for a walk, and understanding that life is a lot more fluid than we were taught when my generation was growing up. And the generations following us are going to do better by understanding there's power in fluidity.
Thank you so much, Juanita. And that again, I mean, you are saying everything which is always music to my ears, because the whole idea is that I can sense it from your body language and from your facial expressions that learning and what you do is not just a profession for you, it's a passion for you, just like me. And a lot of people in learning just treat it like a profession and don't understand the nitty-gritties and the smaller details which you miss out, only focusing on the bigger details without realizing that in the smaller details is the big difference. And I'm happy that you are continuously improving and continuously learning to learn, and also focusing on how do you make an impact on planet and people. So thank you so much. Pleasure having you with us on the author experience conversations. We would love to have you as one of our mentors and residents and missionary pastropreneurs, because we are putting this pre-recorded sessions together for the young generation and young leaders. I'll have Major Bhaktawar Brar send you an invite for that. And we would also love to have Roger Harrop someday on this author experience conversation. I'll reach out to him and write to him and probably take his coordinates from you. But great work. Keep doing the great work with Roger. And I'm sure that, I mean, I see you kind of just excelling in this journey going forward, and keep
Thank
me informed about the books that you would work on.
you.
And once stay in the helicopter is published, I would like to get my copy and learn from that, and probably hopefully you and I collaborate for a book also sometime in the future. So great having
Let's,
you with us. Thank you so much for making the time, and thank you for being with us on Valentine's Day.
Jerry, thank you so much for the invitation and for doing what you do, and helping others on that side of the planet. When all of this can't see each other is over, I hope to meet you in person one day.
Thank you so much. Take care and have a
Keep
great
well.
day. See you. Bye bye.
Bye-bye.